Good afternoon, folks. This is the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission February 17th meeting. We're letting people Zoom into our meeting as I speak. We have a short agenda tonight, which is mostly comprised of allowing the public to comment to us. We do these every third Wednesday. We try to do a meeting during the evening to accommodate folks that may not be able to talk to us during the daytime. And I'm seeing we have about 36 participants. It looks like that's kind of leveled out. So we'll let people continue to move in. And we will start, as is normally the case, with the roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Bove?
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Here.
Commissioner McGowan?
Here.
Commissioner Mesner?
Here.
Commissioner Nanjapa?
Here.
Commissioner Robbins?
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 out of 7 commissioners present.
Excellent. Good to see everybody. And we appreciate everyone attending with us. The first item on our agenda is the consent agenda. We have 3 hearing officer recommendations. Group A has 1 matter with Extraction Oil and Gas, and Group B has 2 matters for Great Western Operating Company. Does any commissioner have any questions about the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Second.
We have a second. The motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on consent? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving consent agenda signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Moving right along, hearings manager Amaro. We now have general public comment. We're a little ahead of time, but let's see if we've got some of our people that have signed up to be able to present to us now.
We do. We have Christy Douglas.
Then we will bring Ms. Douglas to the fore. Hello, Ms. Douglas.
Hello.
And Mr. Douglas, we see your screen, or we see your names.
Right. That's all
and-
that counts, as long as you can hear me and not see me. That's what I'm banking on right now.
Well, that is indeed the case.
Seriously.
We look forward to hearing from you. And then Steve Douglas is actually the next participant, so we can do that. As is normally the case, we try to keep folks to within 3 minutes. With that, we'll let you get started. We look forward to hearing from you.
All righty. My name's Christy Douglas. I don't know if I'll take up the 3 minutes. I've been scrambling today from meeting to meeting, trying to keep up with all of this. I'm a concerned community member of Commerce City in Adams County. I'm a mom to 5 grown kids and grandmom to 5 precious grandchildren. Kids is what I had written down, so forgive me for that. And I love my diverse home of Commerce City. I also serve as the co-chair for NRCC, which is North Range Concerned Citizens. We're a community neighborhood group, and I come to you tonight, though, speaking on my own behalf. So with that said, I've been working to keep my community out of the clutches of the petroleum profiteers, which I call them, over the last decade. And I had to step away for about 6 months, take care of my mom, and now I come back and I find that those petro people have managed to make great gains. And it seems to be increasingly apparent that my neighborhood and community is on the trajectory to becoming an industrialized wasteland. I use the term wasteland because it means a bleak, unattractive urban or industrial area. And that's what I see is going to happen if things don't change. I did have time to listen to the public comment that was given on February 10th. I urge all of you commissioners to go back and listen to that testimony by those 9 or 10 people. There were some from Erie. There was a woman whose daughter has environmentally caused leukemia. Christy Nyholm gave an excellent recount of what's happened at the Ivy site. And Susan Noble made some really good catches on how things have slipped through the cracks and managed to be approved without public knowledge. Please go back and listen to those comments. The other thing that caught my eye was the February 2nd operators training. There was a session on how the industry should approach DICs, and that means disproportionately impacted communities. I am a DIC member. I do ask that you don't change that acronym. I think it's quite appropriate. Just like the Bush administration caught that Operation Iraqi Liberation spelled oil, I don't want you to go and change DIC because I think it's quite appropriate. Go back and listen to that and then ask yourself if you wouldn't be insulted. I was extremely insulted to think that you could offer me daycare and snacks to gain my trust, to let you come into my neighborhood and destroy it, is beyond my comprehension. Please know who you're serving, who pays you. You are paid with taxpayer dollars. We are the taxpayers. I know what your mission is, but please comply with SB 181. So far, that has not happened. And if there was any time to deny a permit, it was the Ivy site. And now we find out you're frogging up and down E470. You might as well call it the Devil's Highway.
Ms. Douglas,
Thank you so much for your time. I guess I took up more than my 3 minutes. Thank you so much, commissioners, for listening to me. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I get so passionate, but this is my community, and I am sworn to protect it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Douglas. I can assure you that commissioners heard public comments at the meeting last time. We take public comments seriously. Later, I was going to introduce the fact that we're planning on having a presentation about the Erie issues and the unloading of trucks at next week's hearing. So we do take to heart the words of the public commenters, and we are doing, I believe, our best in terms of working within the framework of the statute that was delivered to us, which is SB 19-181. Mr. Douglas, I believe you're up now. If you would like to follow up to your wife's eloquent statements, you're up now.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, commissioners, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. And I echo what my wife had said about our family and all. I, as a formal city council member, and listening to early on last year, or even 19 when this was 181 was approved, and then going through the different series with setbacks, with all the different things, cumulative impact. You know, I did hear the third year that the applicants who have their permits in a pipeline need to resubmit those after January 15th, 2021, so that their applications would be part of the new rules and regulations. Well, prior to that, it was told to the operators, get your permits in before then so that they're not part of the process. And, you know, I think this one you guys messed up on, because we really should have just had a moratorium on the leases. Right now, there's enough permits for the next 2 decades to frack Colorado without any new permits. And I think it behooves this commission to even go forward with any more requests, because we are in a non-attainment area as far as Commerce City. There are several permits right now going through the process here in Commerce City, heading your way. They haven't been approved yet in Commerce City, but they did try to slide that in a few weeks ago. And thank God our Councilwoman Noble noticed that and spoke up. And then this same thing on November 2nd, with it was more like a tea and biscuit session detailing the ins and outs, and we'll make sure you bring additional sugar and honey, and don't forget the cookies, because that's how you're going to woo the community who does not know what's going on and how they're going to be impacted later on, just to get them to accept what's happening. So I think we need to roll things back and really look at what the mission is that you guys were appointed to, because I think you guys missed the boat. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Commissioners, bear with me. I normally don't respond on a specific by specific statements, but I've got to respond here. Mr. Douglas, I disagree with you on a number of fronts.
Okay.
One, I was involved with the development of SB 19181, and I heard the legislators, and they said that it was not to be a ban on oil and gas development, nor was it to be a free pass for oil and gas development, and that there needed to be a review of pending permits during the development of the rulemaking using the director's objective criteria. I was the director for 18 months. I approved those permits that I thought were approvable, and I put on hold those permits that I thought were not approvable. Director Murphy then was told to use objective criteria permitting up to January 15th when we turned the rules on, and I have all the regard in the world that she did that appropriately with regard to permits that were approved. I completely disagree that their operators in our state have 2 decades worth of permits in hand. Permits don't even last that long. They're good for 2 or 3 years, depending upon what kind of permit it is. And I do not believe that that is the case. We've now turned on the new rulemaking, and we're looking forward to doing our jobs, which is to use the new rules in a manner that protects Colorado, but also allows oil and gas to be developed. And so I apologize if I'm coming off a bit abrasive on a Wednesday afternoon, but I disagree with some of the ways that you've characterized what we've done and what we haven't done. We're doing our utter best to represent all interest in the state of Colorado, as we were told to do by the Senate and the House and the governor.
No, I understand that, but I think you misunderstood what I said. I didn't say those permits would last 2 decades. There's enough permits to, when they drill, the amount of gas and natural gas and oil coming out of the ground would last us for 2 decades. That's how much permits that has been allowed for them to drill. The problem is they don't store the natural gas. They flare it off. And I seen a big, huge ball of flame from here in Commerce City, and it was like 30 miles north. And they were flaring that up when it was a red flag warning not to do that. You do not have operators who comply. That is the problem. It's like the Wild Wild West. And then for Julie Murphy, I'm just telling you, hey,
I'm
well,
sorry.
hold on. Now you open that up. So for you to say that I said something wrong, well, I'm telling you, it's the wrong message is what you guys sent, because you have towns and counties that are doing the opposite of 181. Now, you can't tell me that Will County is compliant. They are totally doing the opposite. So when you want to go against what I'm saying, that's fine. So I'm going against what you're saying is you did not send out the right information to Will County and other cities who are allowing, and towns who are allowing fracking to go on. who are avoiding, they're not putting strict regulations in. And that's what you guys, because you guys are the floor. And it should have been where you gather everybody up and not the people who run the background, but the ones who set the land development code. They should have been in front of you. Because I've been in a lot of committees. We get everybody, like on the Colorado Municipal League, we get everybody together and we go over all the rules so everybody knows what's going on. So I'll keep it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas.
Mr. Chair, I have a comment also, sorry.
Yes. Commissioner McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to defend staff for the operator training and our discussion of disproportionately impacted communities. Some best practices are providing childcare so that working families who don't have access to childcare and want to participate in a meeting in person would have childcare available so that they could concentrate on the meeting and know that someone was watching their kiddos. We've been talking a lot about trying to do things at times that are convenient for community and locations that are convenient for community. And another best practice is to offer food so that if you came directly from work, there was something for you to snack on if you still wanted to participate in one of these community meetings. So I truly don't think it was meant as the whole we're enticing anybody with honey and cookies or anything like that. It was meant to be more accommodating so that people could participate. So I don't need a response to that. I just want to defend staff because I know that some of these things are best practices for community engagement.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Commissioner McGowan, and for clarifying that point. Next, we have Kimberly Wagner. Ms. Amara, are we able to find Ms. Wagner?
Yes, she's here.
Great.
All right. Hi there. My name is Kim Wagner. I am an intern at 350 Colorado, although I'm speaking on my own behalf. I'm going to try to contain my comments to the scope of what your authority is. I'm wondering why there are so many permits being approved. Permitting is happening despite the inability to accurately monitor fracking emissions and to ensure public safety as mandated, as you said, by SB 181. Permitting is happening even as we are in serious ozone non-attainment that is causing premature deaths, ozone that's fueled by unmonitored methane leaks from fracking operations. And permitting is also happening even as the COGCC hasn't yet begun the 700 series of mission rulemaking. If public health and safety aren't enough to halt permitting, how about the billions of dollars of liability for unplugged fracking wells that Colorado is in store for? The new 700 series regulations that you will tackle next must put in place much larger bonding requirements for fracking operations. Companies must be required to have enough reserves to cover the cost of their orphaned wells should they declare bankruptcy. This regulatory process is going to take months. In the meantime, Colorado's liability for unplugged wells is dire. A recent report by Colorado Tracker identifies 60,000 unplugged oil and gas wells in Colorado. I'm sorry, I may have an unstable internet connection.
We can still hear you. Keep going, we can still hear you.
Colorado's liability for unplugged wells is dire. A recent report by Carbon Tracker identifies 60,000 unplugged oil and gas wells in Colorado, and I think that's underestimated. They estimate that it will cost $7 billion to plug all of those wells, and that excludes reclamation costs. And yet, to secure those obligations, Colorado holds a mere $160 million in individual and blanket bonds, which is only 2% of the estimated plugging costs. In other news, Rystad Energy analysts have predicted that nearly 250 oil and gas companies will file bankruptcy by the end of next year. Courts are going to prioritize paying off creditors over the costs of plugging and cleanup costs for fracking wells, leaving Colorado with costly, pollution-spewing orphaned wells. That puts Colorado taxpayers on the hook for that bill. Thus far, the costs of plugging orphaned wells has come from taxpayer funds. With every new fracking well that is permitted from now until the 700 series rulemaking, we increase the amount invoiced to Colorado taxpayers. Isn't it time for the COGCC to consider pausing permitting new fracking wells until oil and gas companies can be held accountable for the literal and financial messes that they're creating? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner. Would appreciate getting some of that information into our 700 series rulemaking. Sounds like you've done your homework. We're going to open up an informational docket probably by this Friday. And we would appreciate, and I know it's asking a lot, but if you wanted to provide some of that in writing to us, that would make sure that we've got your thoughts and considerations around that. I think all 5 of us agree that we want to get this right for the state of Colorado. So again, thanks for taking time this evening and presenting your ideas around those issues tonight.
Thank you, and I look forward to future participation.
Great. Next on the sign-up sheet is Weston Wilson. Ms. Amaro, do we have Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Wilson and Ms. Mills and Ms. Renee Chacon are not in the room yet. And we can go down to Rona Sanchez.
Okay, and I'll just put a little asterisk beside those 3 and we'll get back to them.
Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Rona Sanchez and I live in Commerce City. I heard that at a previous meeting, someone said that the people who are concerned about oil and gas must have gotten educated about how oil and gas is okay, since these people and groups have not contacted you in quite some time. Nothing could be further from the truth. I cannot speak for anyone else, but I've not been contacting you because I was under the erroneous impression that HB 181 was going to protect us from the toxicity of oil and gas drilling. It is clear by how many permits you continue to approve, I now know better. So for the record, I'm opposed to any oil and gas drilling occurring in neighborhoods. I'm convinced that setbacks should be at a minimum 2,500 feet, and that would be a hard setback. And the cumulative impacts of wells should be taken into consideration. I'm a leukemia survivor, and I remember what my doctor said when I was diagnosed. I asked him what caused this. He said to me, the 2 things that cause leukemia are benzene and bad luck. Benzene is a known chemical around fracking sites, and it's a known carcinogen. The oil and gas people continue to repeat that they do everything to mitigate exposure, but I don't believe that, and neither do the parents of kids at Bella Romero in Greeley. Speaking of Greeley, I used to live there. I moved from Greeley 2 years ago to Commerce City to get away from all the drilling, but apparently I did not move far enough, as Commerce City is the oil and gas company's latest target. I urge you to put the health of Coloradans ahead of the profits made by oil and gas companies. Our lives depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I believe that we have
Renee
Renee
Chacon, yes.
Chacon. Yeah.
Hello, buenas noches.
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, thank you. We live on the land of the Ute, Arapaho, and Cheyenne people, and the surviving generations living here, both urban and rural, of the thousands of indigenous descendants of 48 tribes that still travel through Denver. I remind us to all be good ancestors now. We have survived genocide, both physical and in the American identity. Now we have to survive the degradation and quality of our air, water, and land that we hold more sacred than you. This is environmental racism at its core. You look at our elements as resources, we look at our elements as sources of life, and further confining us to communities socioeconomically to spaces lacking the environmental necessities of life is environmental violence and targeting now after COVID that will never be the same in our spaces, and more than enough cause for accountability and consequences for further public endangerment. My name is Renee Malar-Chacon. I'm a cultural educator and youth program coordinator at Spirit of the Sun, an indigenous nonprofit in Denver. But most importantly, I'm the mother of 2 sons living in Commerce City after 10 years of service with my family in the Navy. I'm determined to be a good ancestor for them in social justice and climate justice for the rest of my life. Do you truly know what extractive industries have done in repeatedly violating these permits to already disproportionate communities, being inconsistent in reporting requirements and modification to these permits, and to really understand what it means to have real limits on these permits and the toxins that they're releasing? This is now environmental violence. Reducing statewide harmful pollutants to acknowledge the healthcare concern and have severe fines for unregulated flares and plumes to stop and enforce clear limits and meaningful consequences from violating polluters. Marginalized and impoverished communities, including me and my family, and including BIPOC communities, experience this degradation as nausea, nosebleeds, headaches, asthma, anemia, childhood leukemia, and babies born at low birth weights, including my son. Systematically, it is a lack of access to safe, renewable transportation, food access, lack of healthcare in a pandemic, and lack of affordable housing everywhere that is restricting us to these spaces. The particulate pollution also makes those suffering from these effects more susceptible to death by COVID. Without meaningful protections, communities surrounding these spaces are left powerless with no accountability from the industries creating the pollution and the governments allowing the degradation for political contributions. We're tired of being preyed upon and being flushed out and choked out of our homelands. I'm asking you to protect people over polluters, which will take courage and humility to recognize the reality harming us all now with public endangerment. If extractive corporations are also given the privilege to sacrifice us, they should be held as moral corporate people and held for violent endangerment and violent public endangerment and environmental crimes when they're committed on people and land. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for coming in and testifying this evening. Ms. Amaro, I believe now we have someone named Lisa,
Yes, we do.
and there is a Lisa in the chat. So
There is.
let's bring her in.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, we can.
Okay. The reason I'm speaking today is in response to the assumption that people don't care about oil and gas anymore because we aren't showing up for comment periods or writing in comments. Let me advise you that the assumptions couldn't be further from the truth. Some of us that are against oil and gas in our communities are parents who are now in the role of teachers, social workers, and counselors while still trying to do our regular jobs. Some of us work in the human services field and now work 60+ hours a week trying to help our community. We do not have extra time to babysit this situation and our local governments. I should be working right now helping at-risk families, but instead I'm here trying to prove that I care about what the government is doing to pass some common sense regulations. We're in the middle of a pandemic and we should not have to worry about oil and gas along with everything else on our plates. We trusted this commission to do the right thing and to hold this industry to a higher standard. Instead, you touted stricter setbacks and other stricter regulations, and then gave the industry loopholes to work around and still screw over the homeowners or potential home buyers in our area. By the way, I live in Commerce City, so I'm seeing this on a daily basis. I watched a city council meeting and was appalled how this industry, developers, and landowners are taking advantage of the homeowners and potential home buyers. The industry developers and landowners are making out like bandits, and most homeowners are left with nothing, holding the bag if things go wrong. The wrong bears have been poked. I'm a mad mama right now, mad mama bear, because I have one child. I've had 3 miscarriages. I don't need to worry about the health and safety of my one child because an industry wants to come in and encroach in my neighborhood that was already established when we moved here. There was no oil and gas around us, not even an inclination that there would be. And yet here I am having to fight for years now to try to keep them from fracking right up in the backyard of my house, or down the street from where I live, or down the street from my kid's school where she's going to have to be exposed to this because over profits? I'm sorry, but there needs to be some common sense here at this point. You cannot let these people, these industries, take advantage of the people that have set their lives here. We bought our house. We can't just up and leave. We're not rich. We're disabled veterans. We can't just pack up everything we own and leave. We have to stay here and now fight for years now to try to get something done that makes sense, common sense. It doesn't make sense to let an industry move in that could put my water in danger because we live on an aquifer, put my air in danger, put stuff into the air God only knows what because it's hardly ever monitored because this industry lies so much, and then have these developers be able to just willy-nilly build houses wherever they want to. I'm actually surprised that Commerce City actually stood up to the developers and set a reverse setback for 1,000 feet, but that was a one-off for some strange reason. They decided to use common sense at one city council meeting. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna hold you, my local government and my county government accountable if anything goes sideways in this neighborhood. And I can tell you right now, I'm not gonna be the only one, because I'm gonna rally the troops and we're gonna get other parents involved. I have never spoken to this commission before because I had faith with SB 181 that like common sense would be used, but it feels like at this point, it's not. So I beg you to please keep all of our kids in mind when you're passing approving these applications and doing these regulations, because I'm not the only mom out here that's struggling, trying to work 60 hours a week, trying to make sure my kids got an education. We can't all just drop everything and just come and grovel at your feet to have you do some common sense actions against this industry and these developers. You guys have got to help us. It is what it is. I live close to E470. That's turning into Frackapalooza out there. You drive down there and it is ridiculous how many sites are set up. That is not safe for anyone out here. And it's gonna impact the Denver Metro. And that's ridiculous because those people don't even have to have it in their backyard. They get it from Suncor and from the fracking. So you guys have got to do something.
Thank you, Lisa. You are over time. We appreciate you coming and presenting to us for the first time. Vicki Ketler.
Mr. Chair, Barbara Mills-Bria is actually in the room. We can.
Okay, then let's go back and catch Ms. Mills-Bria.
Okay, I think I unmuted myself.
We can hear you, Ms. Mills-Bria. Yes.
Okay, I pretty much want to echo what this last woman just said. It was one thing when it was the old-fashioned oil drilling, where you drill straight down into a little pool of oil. But we are way beyond oil and gas at this point. Right now, we should be working to encourage renewable energy. We should stop removing fossil fuels from the ground at all. And the fact that these fracking companies, especially extraction, their whole goal is to frack in people's neighborhoods. That's the residential areas. That's their whole goal. And it's just unbelievable that we are still permitting wells. There was a huge slug of them that went through right before January 15th. And these, I don't know, do they not have to follow the rules? And the rules are so weak. There's leaks all over the place at every part of this industry. And I drove back from Nebraska, last fall, and they were flaring. It looked like a fire from like 10 miles away, right east of the Denver metro area. So you guys have got to start listening to the citizens of Colorado and stop listening to the oil and gas industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mills-Bria. Next, we then now have Ms. Vicki Ketler.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Can you hear me?
We can, Ms. Ketler.
Regardless of statements made by the COGCC hearing officers and oil and gas representatives, please be advised that educated residents continue to protest oil and gas activities in and around their neighborhoods. This includes cumulative impacts attributed to living downwind from oil and gas industrial activity. Any apparent lack of protests is indicative of misleading communication from oil and gas advocates to the public in which it will damage. Just because you don't hear from my neighbors doesn't mean they don't care or that they condone your decisions on granting permission to destroy our neighborhoods. Many of my neighbors are totally unaware or have been misled to believe that their homes and neighborhoods are being protected and will always remain safe and healthy places to live and raise our families. Common sense should tell you that people do not want to live in an oil and gas industrialized area with 230 wells proposed in the immediate area of their homes. Many of us do not have the means or ability to pack up and move. We are asking all of you to help protect our human rights. We are trying to protect our home investments, clean air, and drinkable water. Neighborhood fracking and oil and gas production should never be allowed, or permits given regardless of the amount of feet or setbacks you are discussing in rules and regulations. The cumulative impact of the concentration and intensity of industrial activity surrounding and infiltrating neighborhoods where nearly 60,000 Commerce City residents live, must be recognized and addressed. Consider the serious and negative impact on human life, our wildlife, and the overall climate and viral crisis going on in our world. People must come before profits. When we relocated to Colorado in 2017 to be closer to family, a physician friend of mine said to me, "No one lives in Commerce City." My realtor said that the newer areas being developed were improving this reputation. Home prices were in our price range. However, the property taxes were outrageous. We thought the property taxes in California were high. To our surprise, when we made a lateral move, our property taxes here in Colorado have been more than twice as much. If you commissioners truly want to conserve and protect our human rights, then use your decisions and power to protect all of us citizens who are paying high taxes to live here. Industrialized oil and gas is not a good neighbor. As your mission states, regulate in a manner that protects public health, safety, welfare, the environment, and wildlife resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ketler, for being with us and providing that information. Next, we have Mr. Cerna, I believe.
Yes.
Hello?
Hello.
Sorry. New technology.
We can hear you just fine.
Okay. I live in Commerce City, and just a little bit of history. Throughout the state, okay, I think, and that's just all due assigned to these positions.
Mr. Cerna,
it's not going to
Mr.
be easy.
Cerna?
We know that.
Mr. Cerna,
Yeah.
can I stop you? We lost you, and so we only heard about a third of what you said today. Do you mind starting over?
Okay. My name's Guillermo, okay? And with all due respect, we know the positions that you guys are in as commissioners. There were a lot of mistakes that were made before this. In Adams County, the city, we were told by council that there would be about 34, and the oil companies or gas companies. There would only be 34 in Adams County. Now we're up to 642. And that was because of the expansion of the new technology going in different directions, up to 12. Everything has gone crazy because of that. At the same time, we're a growing city, as the lady said before, on space. We were open space, farm country, wheat country, and at that time, everybody wanted to get into it. In the meantime, Commerce City went from 18,000 to right now about 60,000, if not more. But we're scheduled to be 140 to maybe 150 now, and maybe even more because of the air freight, space air freight that is being worked on, right now for the future. But the future of the people that were promised to old Commerce City at 18,000 people paid $300 million for the infrastructure to start it. And they were supposed to have been finished within 20 years. At the same time, we had the first drill right around 2000. And we were also told that, no, they didn't find anything. And I'm giving you a history because each county is going to be different. Weld County has open space, and you had farmers out there with not just one, let's say 600 homes in one area. They had 600 acres to be able to say, hey, this is mine. But we as people in New Commerce City, from 96 north to Timbuktu east, up to 136. And here we are. The decisions were passed over to administration. Administration creates a lot of misgivings. And unfortunately, you don't know the history of each county or each city. We're a home rule city. But at the same time, these people were promised a good home to come to, a safe home to come to. And now what I'm hearing is that the city is looking at working with the county. Well, the county passed their own rules and regulations. And I don't want somebody, let's say, 300 feet away from my house, as far as pipes going all over, especially when in the same area we're promised to have more homes built, and you're going to have new schools around that area. So we're concerned about our safety, not of ourselves, but of the whole state in how all of these rules come about. And I think that we're trusting you to do the right thing. And don't let these taboos, as far as who created all of this. It was the oil companies. By promising us, okay, that they would do it safely. They're not doing safely because they bring in people from outside the state and put them into our neighborhoods and then talk yes or no. But I think that it has to be a rule that the people should have a vote as to whether we should accept it within the city boundaries. The county can do what they want, but at the same time, we're going to be having pipes all over the place. We
Mr.
kind of
Turner, if you could wrap up, you're well over
Okay.
time. Do you want to conclude, or are you good?
A pipeline from Alaska down south. I wish that you can please keep that in mind and give that to the governor, because I don't think that the governor really has that. And Adams County needs your help if we're going to keep growing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking time this evening to be with us and to provide your perspective. We have a few more. Next is Sarah Kepler, and she may be on the Zoom with Miss Vicki Ketler. Oh, maybe she's on her own.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm sorry, right when I start to talk, it shuts down on me. That's the story of my life.
Regardless of statements made by oil and gas representatives and a hearing officer, please be advised that educated residents continue to protest oil and gas activities in and around their neighborhoods. This includes cumulative impacts attributed to living downwind from oil and gas industrial activity. Any apparent lack of protest is indicative of misleading communication from oil and gas advocates to the public in which it will damage. Other than the fact that nearly every person in my family has a healthcare background, I have a degree in environmental sciences. I'm a certified paralegal, certified emergency and safety professional. I managed sustainability and emergency preparedness at a 500-bed hospital where I was in charge of energy, waste, and water management. I'm also currently obtaining 2 master's degrees in healthcare management and creative writing. So basically, I know how to think and read. I use my literacy skills to read the numerous academic articles written by healthcare professionals regarding health implications oil and gas activities have on human life. I recommend you do the same. In 2019, researchers from University of Colorado found that congenital heart defect rates are 40 to 70% more likely among children near oil and gas extraction operations in Colorado. This is just one of many academically published articles. Stop ignoring scientific evidence provided by healthcare professionals. And yes, COVID-19 is real. If you'd like me to become more educated, I'm going to request some sort of scholarship since I've already put in quite a bit of money to schools such as University of Denver, Lewis and Clark College, and UCLA. I've even had extraction oil and gas representatives sit at our kitchen table, flaunting their fracking technology on how they can peacefully rape the earth. They spoke for nearly an hour, showing us glassy, vibrant photos, none of which depicted homes or schools in the foreground or even the distant background. According to the Colorado Consumer Protection Act, Colorado businesses are prohibited from advertising goods or services without an intent to sell them as advertised. To win a misrepresentation lawsuit, misstatement must involve some material fact about the property or the sale that would affect a reasonable person's decision regarding the purchase. We speculate Oakwood, TriPoint, and Richmond American Homes have been advertising homes without an intent to sell them as advertised. Reasonable and educated people do not want to live near fracking sites. The issue is that people are not educated prior to buying their homes because it is not disclosed. They might not own the land they're paying for. It is not disclosed prior to the time of purchase that there are nearly 200 proposed oil and gas sites near their potential home, which threatens basic human needs such as clean air and water. When homes are being advertised without the intent to sell them as advertised, people are unable to make informed decisions regarding their purchase. Anyone who is okay with that is clearly uneducated. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. We now have Shayna Oliver.
Mr. Chair, Weston Wilson is in the room now.
Well, then let's go back to Mr. Wilson.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Mr. Wilson, yes, and we can also see you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Robin. You have an upcoming rulemaking on Rule 7 with respect to non-pneumatic controllers. And the proposal includes, quite correctly, that existing facilities install non-pneumatic controllers. You're going to hear some arguments, especially from the smaller operators, that it's expensive. I encourage you as commissioners not to be, not to get into that argument. The available technology is there. These non-pneumatic controllers work. They are more expensive when it's in a rural area without electricity, to be sure. But they're essential for protecting public health, as is your obligation under 181. So I encourage you, as that rule comes up, do not make it any more lenient for small operators. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I think I'm a little confused, but I think you may be wanting to provide this evidence and testimony to the Air Quality Control Commission hearing.
Exactly.
And because I think they're the ones that will be taking that matter up. We certainly appreciate listening to it as well, but it might be more pertinent over there.
Yeah, the reason I bring it up here is because it fits into your responsibility for the cumulative impact analysis in your rulemaking. You've got to take control that the permits you're approving have these toxic air emissions. And it's your responsibility under 181 to grapple with that total effect coming from the permits you issue.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that takes care of the 3 that we missed. So we'll go back to the original list, and I believe we have 2 more left. Shayna Oliver perhaps is next.
She is.
Hello?
Hello. Hi, Miss Oliver. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Shayna Oliver. I am a Northeast community member of Denver, field organizer for Eco Madres Moms Clean Air Force Colorado, a national organization of mothers, dads, and caregivers united in fighting for all children's right to breathe and play in clean air. Most importantly, I am an Indigenous mother of 4. We are the descendants of the genocide known as the Indian Removal Act, known to as the Long Walk of the Navajo. These types of violations have run a long historic impact on Indigenous people, community, health, and environmental well-being. Extractive capitalism of minerals and resources outlines the generational impacts of genocide, even inflicted on the Arapaho and Cheyenne people that were massacred along Sand Creek River, known as the Sand Creek Massacre. These lands were not free, but stolen at the lives of Indigenous children, mothers, elders, and men. This is the legacy of extractive capitalism. To continue to mislead that nothing can be done is where the solution hides for climate action, as well as environmental justice. As we continue to move forward, it's imperative for the COGCC to jump forward with no steps backwards. Physicians for Social Responsibility had a symphony on the disproportionate impacts of being near an oil and gas industry and its impacts on health and clean air. There's enough information that already exists that continues to align with what Indigenous people and communities have been screaming for decades, that this will not benefit generations to come. Indigenous, Black, Brown, and people, including myself, my family members are impacted with lifelong health disparities like asthma, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, leukemia, adverse outcomes, mental illness, and premature deaths than the general population. All my grandparents have all died from some form of cancer. PSR stated that these disparities may even be seen 3 generations down before anyone notices. Many Indigenous people may not even know their defect until they join the military. I asked for the denial of all permits to drill and emit oil and gas on new and existing permits. The COGCC needs to hold health and environment a priority for all children's right to breathe clean air, water, and lands. And for this industry, as well as the COGCC, need to come in line with federal mandates that are coming soon. As well, we need to ensure that we start aligning with the Paris Agreement and start preparing for that. 4 years ago, we stated that this direct department needed to find new jobs because oil and gas is not a profitable industry. There is oil and gas sitting in the middle of the water, sitting there, not being used, not being sold, because there is a glut in the market. The market is telling us that oil and gas is the technology of yesterday. And so we need to be imperative as community members, as well as the mothers that are already shared their heartache about oil and gas along 470, as well as the north part of Commerce City, as well as the increasing oil and gas on north of Colorado completely. There needs to be a halt to these permits and stop taking people's, stop having people take their money. They're wasting their money putting in this industry, and for you to continue to enable them to be poor businessmen is not a great leadership. Conserve what is not yours. You are on stolen land.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver, for coming and testifying to us this evening. And then finally, we have Kate Christensen, if she's in the room.
Kate, if you can raise your hand, I think it's campaigns at 3:50. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, I'll rename. I didn't realize that was the situation. I couldn't see myself. I spoke with you both, spoke with you all last week, and I wanted to follow up with a couple of things. I am a mom. I live in Lafayette, Colorado, right on the border of Erie, and I was talking about the liquid unloadings that were happening. And I appreciated Commissioner McGowan's interest in that. And I wasn't able to attend the listening session, but I was glad that the town of Erie recorded it. And I'm glad to hear that there'll be a presentation next week about the trucks unloading. I appreciate the attention the commission is paying to this, but I have some questions and concerns about that. During the presentation, I hope there's some clarification on how seriously the COGCC takes the CDPHE's health studies, because if you go back to the listening session with the town of Erie, at about 39 minutes, Mr. Scott, I think it's Coulterson, I'm sorry, I can't see my notes now, said that the health study is saying that there are health impacts within 2,000 feet of drilling that we just shouldn't pay attention to them anymore. And I found that really concerning. So I would like some clarification around that. And we're still getting a ton of liquid transfer, liquid unloading notices. So it would be great to have more information about that still. The other thing I wanted to talk about was climate change in general, and I didn't know if the commission was aware of a report that 350 Colorado released recently that analyzed the state's roadmap to reducing greenhouse gases. And we all know that we need to reduce greenhouse gases to have a livable planet, like everyone knows that. However, the state's roadmap calls for increasing oil and gas production by 86% over the next 10 years, which doesn't make any sense if you want to reduce greenhouse gases, because the oil and gas sector accounts for about 70% of the greenhouse gas emissions of our state. There's a sign-on letter that I'd also like to share with the commission that about 70 groups and elected officials and community leaders signed on to supporting this report. And I appreciate your attention to it. I'm hoping to email it to all the commissioners. However, on the COGCC website, very few commissioners have their emails listed for contacts. So I could call you all to ask for your emails, but I'm just gonna guess as to what your emails are based on the name.state.gov, and hopefully you guys find it. But if you don't, you can always reach out to me. So thank you again for your time and attention to these issues.
Thank you, Ms. Christensen. And I apologize if our emails are not on the website. They should be. It is pretty straightforward. And I think if you look at each of the commissioners that are on the list here, it's just our name with a dot between the first and the second name at state.co.us. So mine's jeff.robbins at state.co.us.
Yeah, that's what I have the email prepared. That was the assumption I made, but there's only a couple emails that are actually on there. So
okay, well we'll fix that because we want to have an ability to talk with and receive information from folks around the state of Colorado about the work that we're doing. So thank you for your time this evening and for being with us and for changing your name to your name as opposed to
sorry, sometimes my work zooms and my personal Zoom.
No problem. At least you're not a cat.
I am not a cat. Though I will say that I was chopping potatoes while listening with my son's headphones while the grandparents were babysitting my kids over Zoom and doing Mad Libs. So it's a little crazy here right now, even if you're not a cat.
Well, you did a good job. Thanks for coming and being with us this evening. Ms. Amaro, did we have anyone else that signed up for public comment?
We do not, Mr. Chair. That is everyone that signed up.
Okay. And just for everyone, we are taking public comment at each of our hearings. We ask that people sign up 24 hours ahead of time so that we've got a sense of how we're going to go through and find the people. So if you want to sign up, make sure you sign up a day ahead of time, and then we will take public comment at the beginning of our hearings. With that, we've run through the consent agenda. We've done public comment. At this time, we have commissioner comments. And since I've got the floor, I've got a few quick comments for commissioners and for our stakeholders at large. As has been noted, we plan on receiving information from staff next week about the liquids unloading issues. And so we encourage everyone to listen in to that presentation. I also would just sort of note for the record that our meetings are also recorded, and you can get to a YouTube page and find our meetings. So if you can't hear a meeting live and you want to go back and listen to scintillating discussion at a different time, you can go to the YouTube page and find that. As I think we also mentioned, we have developed a financial assurances informal informational docket. We're hoping to get that posted to the website this week. We encourage any person or any entity that has thoughts around financial assurances. That's our next important rulemaking that we're going to undertake. We're going to give folks about 3 weeks to provide us perspective around the questions that are going to be on the financial assurances informational docket. One of the questions is anything else, so that you can add anything else that you might think is important. And then after that, we will collate the information, and we'll probably have a work session or two to allow commissioners an opportunity to speak with parties that may have provided us information around financial assurances. So that is coming. And then I think the last piece that I had is, as you know, we were seated as a professional commission on July 1 of 2020, and we jumped right into the mission change rulemaking. That has now been mostly accomplished. We have 3 more rules to get through in 2021, as I mentioned: financial assurances, worker certification, and permit fees. But I did want to indicate that the 5 of us, as we go about sort of developing our working relationship with each other and developing the tasks that we're doing, we found it that, well, we believe it will be helpful to have meetings on Friday mornings at 9 a.m., I believe, and that's not hard and set, but I think that's what this Friday's is. Those meetings are under the Colorado Open Meetings Law open, and you're encouraged to attend. We're not going to be taking public testimony at those meetings. We're just going to be talking amongst ourselves, talking about our day jobs and et cetera. And so if folks wanted to attend, you can Zoom in. Again, we're not going to be recognizing folks, but it's just these 5 commissioners, and at times with staff, we'll be talking. We don't have agenda set. It's a chance for us to get together and do the business of the commission, or at least talk about things about commission issues. So we're going to start that this Friday. That's February 19th. And I believe that's set for 9 a.m. So we'll have a Zoom link on the homepage if folks wanted to attend those meetings. I believe that covers my commissioner comments. I'm looking at the chat just to confirm. Chair Robbins said that staff's presentation on the well liquids unloading issue in Erie will be next week. And yes, Ms. Laughlin, that is the case. Staff needed some time to put the presentation together, and we also, by error, failed to put it on today's agenda. And so I didn't want to have that discussion because folks may have looked at the agenda, found it wasn't on there, and then determined not to attend today. So we're trying to be transparent. So that's the 2 reasons we're doing it next week. I now will look to other commissioners who may have comments. Commissioner Hackett.
Thank you, Chair Robbins. Just wanted to provide a couple updates from CDPHE. These are follow-ups to comments that I had last week for folks who maybe didn't tune in last week. On Monday this week at their regular hearing, the Solid and Hazardous Waste Commission within CDPHE did vote in favor of adopting registration requirements for firefighting foams that use the chemical PFAS. And while that rulemaking, just to keep in mind, they did adopt the registration requirements for those foams, but it did not adopt regulatory requirements for cleanup, disposal, or remediation. And just for a reminder to people that are following this issue, for disposal in December 2020, EPA issued guidance on destruction technologies that people are encouraged to follow if they do encounter these compounds in the environment. Aside from that guidance, there aren't currently any hazardous waste or solid waste requirements for the cleanup or remediation of any PFAS contamination. However, it seems possible, and I would say probably even unlikely, that the Biden administration might be taking further actions on these chemicals. So just be on the lookout for that. And then also just wanted to, there were definitely a lot of commenters from Commerce City. This isn't directly related to the oil and gas drilling permit applications that are being considered in Commerce City. And this is a little bit farther downstream than this body than the COGCC typically ventures, but just something to be aware of. The Suncor Energy Refinery in Commerce City, they do have air quality and water quality permits with CDPHE, and they've recently submitted renewal applications. So starting tonight, I think maybe it just started at about 6, the Water Division's holding a stakeholder meeting about that water quality permit application process and soliciting public feedback about that. And then also following up on a stakeholder meeting they had on February 10th, the Air Pollution Control Division will be having another stakeholder meeting, another public meeting to talk about the air quality permit on March 19th. So that's something for folks, members of the public, to be on the lookout for. And then just another reminder, tomorrow and Friday is the Air Quality Control Commission's next hearing. As one of the commenters noted, part of the rulemaking hearing that'll start tomorrow is additional requirements surrounding emission reductions from pneumatic controllers. And that was a rulemaking that was peeled off of a rulemaking that happened in December 2020, and this is a follow-up to that. And then another thing that I think everyone's going to be interested in, that'll happen on Friday during the Air Commission's hearing, starting at 9 a.m. There will be a briefing on the roadmap, the greenhouse gas emission reduction roadmap from the Colorado Energy Office. And the Air Division also has a couple evening sessions, stakeholder listening sessions on March 4th and March 25th to talk about the roadmap. And then the last thing I wanted to share from the Air Commission, I think I mentioned this before, but we had all arrived at March 18th for the joint meeting with COGCC and CDPHE. And we're looking forward to working with staff and commissioners on finalizing the specifics of that agenda. So that's all I had. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Hackett, for continuing to keep us up to speed with all things CDPHE. Other commissioners, Commissioner Messner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to say thank you to the folks from the public that took time out of their evenings and away from their family to provide comment to us tonight. I know it's always a little intimidating to provide comment in front of a commission like this. Perhaps easier over the computer than it is in person. But I do want to thank you, and I do want you to know that we do hear you, we do listen, we do take it to heart. It is part of our decision making, at least mine, and I'm sure it is with the other commissioners, to take what you say into consideration as we're making different determinations. And I do think that we make every attempt, and will continue to make every attempt, to be transparent in the work that we do. And I did go to the website, and our emails aren't on there, and we'll certainly get them on there, but my cell phone's on there, and the rest of the commissioners' cell phones are on there. And I'm always willing to take phone calls if people have specific questions about anything, or just want to chat, get some more information, get information from the horse's mouth, so to speak, so that there's not a misinformation train that often goes around some of these issues. And so don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. I won't speak for the other commissioners, but I would imagine that they feel the same way. Yeah, so thank you for taking the time to share your thoughts with us tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Messner. And I think the rest of us are nodding our heads up and down and happy to take emails or schedule meetings or take phone calls. The one caveat, and I'll put my Kyle Davenport AAG hat on here, is I don't think we're allowed to receive information on a quasi-judicial pending permit. So you would need to come to the meeting or file written comment on actual applications. But other than that, if it's just COGCC business, let's talk. Kyle, did I get that right? Or AAG Davenport?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that's correct. If it's in regard to a pending filed application, folks who are interested in that should communicate through the channels that our rules provide.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. I'll look to other commissioners in a sec, but I see a comment. Can you let us know where to sign up for public comment at future commissioner meetings, please? Hearings Manager Romero, can you answer that question that someone threw into the chat?
Yes, they can sign up on the COGCC website, and what I can do is try and provide the link for it. And it says anonymous attendee, so I can probably put it out there, but we also have changed a few things, so I'd have to confirm.
Yeah, if you could just make sure that it's pretty easily findable on the first page, that would be great.
You got it.
I also had a constituent the other day ask how to find their way to the YouTube page to find previous hearings. And honestly, I couldn't find it. So if we could make that a little more transparent on that web page somehow, that would be great too.
Okay.
Great. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have much of substance to add today. I wanted to clarify that I think we're going to be shooting for 10 a.m. for our Insights meeting, just to clarify that.
Okay.
So I appreciate you throwing that out there, Jeff, and teeing that up. And then the next thing is I did poke around on the website and looking for our contact information. I found the page where all that is. Aside from Commissioner Messner, we are all missing our emails on there. And I want to echo the sentiment that I've stated here before, and that Commissioner Messner just put forth about my willingness to be contacted. So my email is pretty easy to find. I think Commissioner Robbins did a good job of teeing up the template for that. But if someone on staff could populate those, I think that'd be very helpful for the public to be able to get a hold of us. So that's all I got. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Nanjapa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just echoing the same line of comments, I would just also say that I get a fair number of spam calls on my cell phone. So if you leave a message, I will definitely return it. But if you don't leave a message, I won't know if you're spam or not. So please, please do consider leaving voice messages if you would like to speak, or otherwise email, as the other commissioners have said. Thank you.
Anything further? All right. Well, I think that concludes our agenda. We want to thank the 42 folks that have participated with us this evening still. Everybody have a safe and warm night. And with that, we would look to a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we generally don't have discussion on adjournment. Seeing none, all those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. We're done for the evening. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice night.